say yes when every cell in your body is screaming no, and you've been doing it for so long, you don't even notice the scream anymore. Think about the last time someone asked you for a favor you didn't want to do. Maybe it was covering a shift, lending money you couldn't really spare, or sitting through a phone call with a friend who just talks and never once asks how you're doing. What did you say? If you were like most nice people, you said yes. And then you spent the next 3 hours quietly furious at yourself, replaying the conversation, thinking about all the ways you could have said no but didn't. Here's the number that should stop you in your tracks. Researchers who study people-pleasing and boundary issues have found that around 40% of adults identify as chronic people-pleasers, meaning they consistently put other people's needs ahead of their own, even when it costs them their time, money, energy, or peace of mind. 40%. That's not a small, quirky personality trait some of us have. That's basically 2 out of every 5 people you know walking around agreeing to things they hate, smiling through resentment, and calling it kindness. Imagine a classroom of 25 kids. 10 of them are silently overriding their own needs every single day just to keep the peace. That's the scale we're talking about. So let's actually get into why this happens, because it's not random, and it's not really about being a good person. Being too nice in the way we're talking about today isn't the same as being kind. Kindness is a choice you make from a place of strength. This other thing, the compulsive niceness, the inability to disappoint anyone ever for any reason, that's usually a trauma response, wearing a friendly mask. Most of the time, it starts in childhood. Picture a kid growing up in a house where love felt conditional. Maybe one parent had a temper that could flip in a second, and the kid learned real fast that the way to stay safe was to read the room before anyone else could. Be agreeable. Don't rock the boat. Don't have needs that inconvenience anyone. Because every time that kid did have a need, or an opinion, or said no to something, there was a cost. Maybe it was yelling. Maybe it was the silent treatment. Maybe it was just a look. A specific kind of disappointed look that made the kid feel like they'd done something unforgivable. So that kid adapts, and kids are incredible at adapting. That's basically their whole superpower. They figure out that being agreeable, being helpful, being the easy one keeps things calm. It keeps them loved, or at least it keeps them safe, which as a child can feel like the same thing. And here's the part that matters most. That strategy works. It gets them through childhood. The problem is, nobody sends an email letting you know the strategy has an expiration date. So that same kid grows up, moves out, gets a job, starts dating, makes friends, and they're still running the exact same program. Scan the room, figure out what everyone else needs, suppress your own needs, keep the peace at all costs. Except now, there's no unpredictable parent to manage. Now it's a coworker who takes credit for their ideas, a partner who never quite meets them halfway, a friend who only calls when they need something. And the nervous system doesn't know the difference. It's still running that old childhood code, still convinced that saying no is dangerous, even though the actual danger disappeared years ago. This is why so many too nice people feel this low hum of exhaustion that never fully goes away. It's not because they're doing too much, although they usually are. It's because they're spending enormous amounts of energy managing everyone else's emotions while ignoring their own. Think about how much mental effort it takes to constantly predict what other people want, to pre-apologize before you've even done anything wrong, to soften every request you make so it doesn't sound too demanding. That's a full-time job running in the background of your brain, and it's exhausting in a way that's hard to explain to someone who's never lived it. Now, here's the part that really gets people. A lot of too nice behavior isn't actually about the other person at all. It's about anxiety management. When a people pleaser says yes to something they don't want to do, they're not really doing it because they care that much about the other person's feelings in that moment. They're doing it because saying no creates an unbearable spike of anxiety inside them, and saying yes makes that anxiety go away immediately. It's relief. It's the same mechanism as any other habit that gives you short-term relief and long-term damage. You feel that jolt of dread the second you consider disappointing someone, and saying yes is the fastest way to make the dread stop. So over years, saying yes becomes less of a choice and more of a reflex, like flinching when something flies at your face. And this is where it gets kind of dark, honestly.
Because chronic people pleasers often build their entire identity around being the nice one, the one everyone can count on, the one who never causes drama. And that identity feels good on the surface. People compliment them for it.
Friends say things like, "You're always so easy to be around," or "You never complain about anything," and it feels like praise. But underneath, it means something a little sadder. It means people have learned they can take from this person without consequence. It means their needs have quietly become optional in every relationship they're in, including the ones with people who supposedly love them. There's also a sneaky kind of control hiding inside all this niceness.
And I want to be gentle here, because this isn't about blaming people pleasers. It's about understanding the full picture. When you're constantly accommodating everyone, constantly agreeable, constantly the one who bends, you're also, in a strange way, trying to control how people feel about you. If I never disappoint you, you'll never leave. If I never ask for anything, you'll never have a reason to get annoyed with me. If I'm always easy, always low maintenance, I get to stay safe from rejection. It's not manipulative in the way we usually think of that word. It's not calculated or cruel.
It's a survival strategy that got twisted into a personality, but the effect is the same either way. Relationships built on one person constantly managing the emotional temperature while suppressing their own reality. And this is the part that a lot of too nice people don't see coming. Because they avoid conflict so aggressively, they actually end up creating more of it in the long run. Resentment doesn't just evaporate because you smiled through it. It builds up, quietly, in the background, like pressure in a pipe, and eventually it comes out somewhere.
Sometimes it comes out as passive aggression. Little comments, subtle jabs, the silent treatment they swore they'd never do to anyone else. Sometimes it comes out as a sudden blow-up that seems totally out of proportion to whatever small thing triggered it. But really, it's 10 years of unexpressed no's finally forcing their way to the surface. And sometimes, maybe the saddest version, it just turns inward. It becomes anxiety. It becomes depression. It becomes that flat, exhausted feeling of being a stranger in your own life because you've spent so long performing a version of yourself that everyone else finds convenient.
Here's something worth sitting with. Being too nice often has almost nothing to do with how much you actually care about people. Some of the most people-pleasing individuals out there aren't even that emotionally attuned to others. They're just extremely attuned to threat. There's a difference between empathy and fear, even though from the outside they can look identical. Empathy says, I want to help you because I feel connected to you. Fear says, I need to help you or something bad might happen to me.
A lot of nice behavior is actually the second one wearing the costume of the first. So what does healthier look like? It's not becoming cold or rude or suddenly saying no to everything just to prove a point. That's not growth. That's just swinging the pendulum to the other extreme, and it usually doesn't stick anyway because it's not coming from a place of actual security. Real change looks like learning to tolerate the discomfort of someone being mildly disappointed in you without treating it like an emergency. It looks like noticing the anxiety spike when you're about to say no. And instead of reflexively saying yes to make it go away, just breathing through it and staying with your actual answer. It looks like slowly, awkwardly, imperfectly practicing saying things like, I can't do that, or that doesn't work for me, and discovering, usually to your total shock, that the world doesn't end. The people who actually respect you stick around, and the ones who only liked you because you were convenient, well, that tells you something important too. It also means redefining what kindness even means to you.
Real kindness isn't the absence of boundaries. It's actually impossible without them. Because if you're giving to someone from a place of fear or exhaustion or resentment, that's not a gift. That's a transaction you didn't agree to the terms of. The most generous thing you can actually do for the people in your life is show up as your real self, with real limits, so that what you do give them is actually genuine instead of extracted from you through anxiety. And maybe the hardest truth in all of this is that the people who are too nice usually think they're protecting their relationships by never causing friction. But what they're actually doing is preventing those relationships from ever becoming real, because nobody can truly know you if you never let them see the parts of you that might disagree, might need something, might say no. Being nice was never supposed to cost you yourself. If this video helped you understand yourself a little better, consider buying me a coffee through the link in the description. It genuinely helps keep this channel going.